Tell me, though, what's his technique? That last strike, it seems invincible.
Hi and welcome to the Immortal Iron Fist podcast, Sons of the Dragon. It's Rebecca here doing another individual podcast because me, Karl, Connor, we all want to get together to talk about the Iron Fist Netflix show, and it's kind of difficult to schedule the US, the UK and Australia. So that's the delay there. We are definitely trying to do it. We'll do it as soon as we can. I work crazy hours. Karl works kind of the opposite end of the day to me. We're in opposite time zones. Connor works the opposite end of the day to me. Karl works other times. So we'll get it done. In the meantime, really want any feedback or questions that you guys had about it. You can get us on our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/IronFistPodcast. Our Twitter, which is @IronFistPodcast, or our email, which is sonsofthedragonpodcast@gmail.com. So in the meantime, anything you want to say about the Netflix show, delighted to hear from you. Connor will be looking at the website to see what comments have come up since the show was released. But that's the delay. So, this time, I was looking at all the Iron Fist issues I could talk about, but there's quite a limit to them in terms of sort of limited numbers of issues, one-offs. There's a few appearances we could still talk about. I don't want to do anything with Daredevil or Deadpool in because I know Connor's a massive fan and would love to sit in on those. There's a couple put to one side for when we can get together to do one that isn't from the main run. And I didn't really want to start on Daughter of the Dragon, which is another possibility and one I might start, but it's not a short enough run for me to really want to cover in one podcast. But having said that, there's that, and I might also look at some of the Defenders comics that I love. That's for another time, so if you've got any thoughts on that, let us know, because it's obviously the individual podcasts are going to sort of plug our holes. But for this time, I wanted to talk about something a little bit different. Not sure how this is going to go over with everyone, but I want to talk about Ninjak. It's a character that you all, to people who read comics that aren't in the sort of Marvel DC world, will often mention Ninjak when you say you like Iron Fist. I had it mentioned to me a few times over the last year. It's not something I've ever heard about. I've never really read Valiant comics. I started reading them 6 months ago after I went to New York Comic Con because I went to a panel that a friend wanted me to go to about Valiant comics, and all the people around me had kept dropping in information that Valiant was this cool universe that I should look into. The whole comic line rebooted in 2012. They did a massive relaunch of Valiant. Again, I'm not going to pretend that I know a lot about this. I know it started off, Valiant started off in the 90s and was rejigged, was bought by Acclaim Entertainment in 96. They did some more comics. But what I really know is this 2012 relaunch of Valiant. It's a much smaller universe than DC or Marvel, much more contained. Because it's so close. It's got shared. It's a shared universe. The characters do crop up in one another's issues. Some of the bad guys crop up in one another's issues. It's all incredibly well written and beautifully drawn. So if you want to have a look at Valiant, I definitely recommend it. And my recommended starting point would be a 4-part mini arc called The Valiant, which was... It's just great. It introduces you a bit to all of the characters. It gives you this interesting storyline about them all having to come together to fight this bad thing. And from there you can kind of see who you'd like. It's pretty cheap trade, and if you've got Comixology Unlimited, if you're in America, I think it might be on that. If not, I know that there's other ways to sort of, like, Library might have it. If you've got Library has a comic subscription kind of thing, they might have it. But it's a pretty cheap trade. So that's the way to go. But we're going to talk about Ninjak, who appears in the second issue of the Valiant when he gets drawn into it. So I'm going to read a little bit from Wikipedia first. I've literally nothing that, and then we're going to look at the first issue of the Ninjak solo title. Um, so Ninjak's a superhero appearing in Valiant comics. He was co-created by Mark Moretti and Joe Quesada, Karl's favourite. And he first appeared in a comic called Bloodshot, issue number 6, as Colin King. But he very quickly got his own series. We're not going to talk about Bloodshot. He's massive, though, and there is a film that may be coming out about Bloodshot. So Valiant have just got into the sort of cinematic kind of world. They're not doing a cinematic universe as such, but they have sold rights to some of their titles. One of them is Bloodshot. He's pretty distinctive and very cool. So the Ninjak series became very popular, and he quickly became #1 in Wizard Magazine's top 10 hottest comics of the month in 1994. The lead character is a ninja spy, Ninjak, whose alter ego is British playboy Colin King. Right, so we've got a couple of things to talk about there, about why you might get recommended that if you like Iron Fist. So, the lead character is a ninja spy. Okay, so we're talking martial arts here, but in Ninjak it's very much ninjutsu. He's also ridiculously intelligent. He has crazy gadgets of the sort of Batman-esque kind of variety, Batman, Moon Knight, I guess. And James Bond is the person you'll most often hear me reference, probably because he works for MI6, which is Britain's foreign intelligence agency. So if we're talking American terms, it'd be our CIA to MI5, which is our FBI. If you wanted to know, let's go into a bit more detail. MI stands for military intelligence, and yes, there was an MI1 right up to MI6. MI6. Well, further actually beyond. There actually allegedly it goes to at least MI13, which is referenced in Marvel comics as well. Once you get British writers in a Captain Britain comic, and was said to be the dirty trick side. So MI1 is naval intelligence, because in our military, Navy's always seen as the best, in inverted commas. Then Air Force, Army, and then you get to eventually MI5, which is internal security, MI6, external security. So, Ninjak works alongside MI6 and very much does James Bond type things, but in a superhero type world. Alright, so that's your basic setup. So his first series was in 1994-ish, I guess. Second series was produced after Valiant was bought by Acclaim. It was written by Kurt Busiek, another big name in comics. Sadly, the origins for Ninjak there are little differently, and a teenager is endowed with ancient ninja powers from a video game. Ooh, and he's able to become the game's hero, Ninjak. But you can't guess that the company that bought out Valiant was a video game company. It sounds kind of strange, but you know what? Almost tempted to read it. But we'll go to the 2012 relaunch. So Ninjak first appeared in the second arc of their lead title, which is Exo Manowar. And that's about a guy who has sentient alien armor. So he looks a little bit like Iron Man when he's in his armor, except it's kind of light blue and gold. But it's not very similar. He's a Visigoth, so he's also got the kind of historical figure out of their depth in modernity, but he also has the alien aspect because this armor is a sort of alien artifact that has chosen him as worthy. It's a little bit of it's a little bit of all the Avengers in one there, if we're gonna, because there's a bit of a cap there with the person who's from another time, bit of Thor there with the alien artifact who's found him worthy, and obviously the Iron Man connection. I love Manowar. It's just restarted, so if you wanted to give it a go, there's a #1 issue, should be on the shelves right now. We're not going to pimp Valiant too much though. But anyway, so Ninjak first comes in as an enemy because Exo Manowar's doing something that the British government's not very keen on. But he very quickly becomes an ally. So you've got that kind of, superheroes meet, fight, become friends. And then from 2013 in November, he joined a comic called Unity, which was about these superheroes coming together to take on bigger targets. But at the end of 2014, they announced he was going to have his own title again. It started in 2015, and it's still going on now. We're up to issue 25 was last week. And it's one of those series that it wasn't the first one I read. I started with Exo Manowar when people said go for Valiant, and then I read the Valiant. Then I went to Bloodshot, and then Ninjak. It took me a little while to come around to him. I think because of the Iron Fist kind of, do I really want to be that person who reads all the sort of martial artsy comics? And people will compare it, 'cause again, you've got a white guy who has learnt martial arts, isn't necessarily the best in the world in this case, doesn't have any superpowers in Ninjak's case, and but you know they're both sort of the highest profile martial artist in that universe. Perhaps, okay, I'm not going to diss Shang-Chi here. He's amazing, but at the moment I think you'd have to say Iron Fist has a higher profile within the Marvel universe. Not when they were first released, when it was the opposite way around, but right now. Well, in Valiant, Ninjak is definitely your go-to guy for martial arts. He has, let's have a look. So I'm going to look at Ninjak #1, which was published in 2015. It's got I'm not going to go through the writers yet because it's got it's got a main issue and then a sort of like added story at the end. They have different writers, so we'll go through the teams as we get to them. The front cover is is pretty cool. It's Ninjak, who he's got dark hair. He's got a face mask on, but not like Iron Fist's one. It covers forehead, and from his nose down, it's just his eyes are showing and his hair. His outfit is black and purple, and he is covered with arrows that are all being stuck in him. So he's obviously been shot at. He's got his sword drawn and looks ready for action. Titles bang in the middle across one side of his chest, and it's kind of and there's an explosion going on behind him or a fire. So that's the cover page. The next page you go into shows one of his tools, and this is how the first bits of the comic go until they sort of shuffle things around again for different story arcs. So you've got the Ninjak Specification and Insights multi-tool battle belt. So it's quite cute. It goes through all the things that his battle belt can do. It's got flashbang projectiles, throwing discs. He actually has some like shuriken that are actually made just for him. It's got some poisons in, some cameras, and some. It himself is high tensile titanium, and it's got a few redacted things on it, which is kind of sweet and exactly what it would do. Right, so the comic starts, and it is a martial artist with a sword, eyes bound, so he's blinded, and some cranes in the background. So like one of the most a beautiful kind of we're going straight into martial arts here. He's standing in the middle of a bridge, and there are attackers coming around him in full sort of they're in Japanese garb, and you see them come, and then there's like obviously going to be a fight. So that's how that goes. And so then I'm not going to go through too much of the story here, but I'll tell you, I just want to go through some of the art because it's so beautiful and give you a sort of setup of how the comic works. Then it turns out that you see a little kid, bright blue eyes, sitting in a cinema on his own eating popcorn, and you've got the little Ben. So we know that's the flashback. Then we go to now, and there's these cute little someone's talking to Ninjak, clearly, and they're sort of saying, this is your target, blah, 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 you know, sort of James Bond style, this is what you're going to do. You get to see very clear panels, you see panels through his little cameras, and all the little boxes that are sort of giving him instructions have got a tiny little Union Jack cut off next to them, so you're very aware straight away it's somebody British talking to him. And they're giving him his instructions basically to infiltrate this base and interact with the prisoner there. And I'm not going to tell you too much about the story, who the prisoner is, that stuff like that. They're setting it up. It's going to explain why. There's a few pages of setup saying this is what you can do, that's what you can do, this is what you're going to do, and then you get Ninjak, and he's sort of saying, is all of this supposed to impress me? And you get to see the outfit again, the sword. It's a full page of him, and then you get the credits. So Ninjak Book 1, Matt Kint, the writer, he's amazing. Clayman pencils, he's amazing. Seth Mann inks, obviously. Ulysses Areola colors, beautiful. Dave Sharp letters. And the associate editor is Warren Simon. Oh no, the associate editor is Tom Brennan. Warren Simons is the editor. I'm not going to go into all the cover artists. There's a lot of them because it's an issue 1. There's plenty of variants. There's some interesting, lots of purples and greens in the comic, and where they want to do it, sort of blues and reds to really sort of pop. One thing that makes Valiant sort of stick out is it's got very kind of realistic art generally. And really high quality stuff. They don't tend to rush things, and they allow breaks between arcs for art to catch up. So they have sort of long runs of the same artists and writers together. And they have again people who've come up through together and written and scored and done stuff together. So you get a very consistent feel to most of their books. A lot of them also seem to be very good friends. So when there are crossovers, it's very cool. Then you get then we get the big spectacular fight to launch the comic. Ninjak versus the prisoner. And it is pretty cool. The action's done very nicely. Lots more greens and reds and purples. It's very bright and vibrant. There's the panels chop and change. They're not all square. They're not all equal. They're not all balanced, and it all just highlights the action. There's like sounds. He's showing off his gadgets. You get a real insight into what the comic's going to be about. He even gets a few quips in. He's not like the Spider-Man kind of quippy, but he's got that kind of British wry sense of humour. Writers often get him to say "blimey" a lot, which makes all of us Brits laugh. But it does its bit of when you're showing him alongside Americans. He has a different feel to him, which is quite clever because I don't know if he's been written by many Brits. So it's nicely done, and they've obviously doing things. So he finishes his mission, and then we go back to him as a kid, and it starts to sort of give you a little bit more insight. He's obviously a very rich kid. He's getting cabs everywhere. He's offering to pay them extra money. His parents possibly don't care where he is. And that's that little clip. Then we go back to now again, and we get to see a little bit more about Colin King, who lives in a castle. A castle that is known as King's Castle because of where it's owned. I mean, this thing is massive. It's on its own lake, pretty much, and it's real James Bond stuff. It could almost come from a movie. Not that James Bond would live there, but one of his baddies certainly would. And he's sitting there talking to his handler, who's Neville Alcott from MI6. And Neville's basically saying, well, this mission's under the, we're not gonna, this one's not above board. We're keeping it quiet. I'm paying you out of sort of social funds, but you should come work for us. And Colin's saying, I kind of like being able to turn down missions when I don't like them. So you're like, well, he does work for them all the time now. Wonder what got him there. There's a bit of intrigue there. The colours are quite different. There's a lot more sort of sun. We're out in the outside. It's not as kind of actiony. The panels start becoming squarer. And then you very quickly get to learn the joke about the name Ninjak. Because, you might be wondering, why Ninjak? Very much like James Bond with 007. You can assume there are all the other 00s, and we hear about 006, I think, at least a few times. You see a computer screen that they've brought up has listed all the other ninjas. So it's Ninja A down to Ninja K. And it's literally Ninja hyphen. And even Colin says, is there actually a Ninja A? Like Neville's, well, there was. So again, and then Neville's giving him his next mission, which is basically to go and infiltrate this organization called Weaponeer, which is an arms dealing thing. And they only know it has 7 leaders, and they only know one of them. But because of the previous mission, they've got a way for Colin to go and try and become undercover there. And obviously, because as Ninjak, he's like totally covered up. There's no he won't have been spotted anyway. So, and he's a sort of British like multi-millionaire, if not billionaire. So he's got sort of money to sort of get himself on the table and things. And he says, but there's a problem. You're going to have to go through a number of tests to get to speak to the guy. And these tests are kind of funny. They all are designed by the head of Weaponeer that they know about, to embarrass him or put him on the spot, find out what he's made of. So you get to see Colin doing some karaoke, being told to strip, and having to be resourceful. Like, they basically strip him and say, get to us by the time this meeting, and he has to get all the way there from being dumped on the ground. And then we flash back again, and the flashback this time is at night, and this one's almost like Batman-y. It's Batman. You've got like the moon, the castle. You know he's definitely at the castle because you get the shadow of that. You see him like climbing up, sneaking in, climbing into bed. He's got a purple hoodie on and black trousers, which is kind of cute. And then you see an older guy, who, if you didn't know otherwise, you know, like white hair, white moustache, suit, black suit. He says Master Colin, stepping out at this late hour. You should know better than that. So we're talking butlers here, if we know anything from our Batman. And you get the idea that, and so he's obviously someone that his parents don't mind being raised by a butler. Again, we've got that hint that his parents aren't the best of parents. And later on, we see the butler with a belt, sort of saying you shouldn't be doing this. And the very heavy indication is that the butler is not being the nice Alfred Pennyworth that Batman had and Bruce Wayne, but is being something slightly more sinister altogether. Which is, you know, and that gives Ninjak a lot of his history. You see the boy looking pretty upset about it all, obviously. And we flip back to the thing, and we see Colin kind of being accepted by the Weaponeer guy, and sort of saying, yeah, you know, come on, let's talk more. And then it just says to be continued. So there's your setup. He's just made the first stages of being undercover in this operation. Very James Bond. He's freed someone. He's done this. He's dressed stupidly. He's done fun things. He's shown that he's very able and capable to do exactly what his mission's done. So there's Ninjak and Colin. So then it flips to something that happens until they need it to not happen anymore, and that's you've got these extra stories at the end, which are, they're good, like 7 pages or something. They're called the Lost Files, and they are, Matt Kint wrote them again. Butch Guice is the artist, who is a really beautiful, evocative artist. Love him. Ulysses Areola on colours again, so same thing, and Dave Sharp on letters again. So we get a map to show we're in Pyongyang, Korea, I think, or definitely in North Korea. It's very hard for me to see right now. And it's 10 years ago. And all the colours are much more muted. We've got, it's almost like Blade Runner. It's raining all the time. There's light blues, dark blues, purples, blacks. So again, staying very with the purple and black here. And again, I'm not going to go to the story too much. And it's basically, you see him with you see Colin with his handler, and she is teaching. She's sort of like, he's talking about this mission. She's called Angelina, and it turns out it's kind of his first mission, and she's kind of giving him the pep talk. We get to see how the first mission goes, and we get to see a little bit of sort of afterwards. We get to see how the first mission goes. We get to hear his feelings about going on his first mission. Yeah, we get to see how the first mission goes. And it's very cool. It's a little bit like in Watchmen, where you have the sort of pirate comic within a comic. These are obviously going to teach us a bit more about Colin's history, but not flashback to child. So in the main comic, you get flashback to child, flashback to now. And these ones, we're getting this progression of his first case to where he is now. So you've got 2 different looks at establishing the character, which is pretty cool. That's the first issue. I don't really want to go in the story very much, because it's kind of the sort of thing that either appeals to you or don't. I would really recommend it. I don't really think I have that much more to say about it. If you have any questions about Valiant, Ninjak, anything, what else you should read about those, or you fancy giving it a go, I would say again the first volumes of Valiant trades tend to be quite reasonable. I just bought this one for $6.50 in the UK, which is about $10 in US. Sorry, I can't do the Australian conversion because I've not even looked it up, but I'm sure you are all very capable of doing that yourselves. Same with other countries. I'm sure you're used to the world being a bit snotty about doing things in dollars and sterling. My apologies for that. But I hopefully that's just given you a new insight into something you could watch. So, thank you for listening. Sorry it's not an Iron Fist one, but hopefully at least Iron Fist adjacent. And we will get on that Netflix show as quickly as we can for you. We definitely all want to be on it, and that's the problem in a way, because we all have some things we agree about, some things we disagree about, and we just thought it'd be interesting to give you the full sort of spectrum of our views. Alright, so thanks for listening, guys, and send us messages. Alright, take care, bye bye.
Iron Fist and all other characters in these comics are properties of Marvel and Disney. Any music or images we use belong to their respective copyright holders. We do this for fun, so please don't sue us. You can contact us at sonsofthedragonpodcast@gmail.com. Just send us mail, comments, thoughts, anything you want really. Doesn't even have to be related to Iron Fist. If you don't want it read on the air though, make sure you mention that. You can also find us on Facebook, the Immortal Iron Fist Podcast, Sons of the Dragon, our Twitter, at Iron Fist Podcast, our SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/Sons of the Dragon, hyphens where the spaces are, our YouTube, Karl, just search Iron Fist Podcast and you'll find us real quick. We are also on iTunes. If you find us there, give us a review and rate us. If it's less than 5 stars, please say why so we can improve the show. And we're on Podcast Garden in the literature section, and last but not least, head over to our WordPress, Sons of the Dragon, the Immortal Iron Fist Podcast.wordpress.com. That's where I put all the show notes. And I would like to thank Thomas Tissot for letting us use his Iron Fist theme song for the start of our show. And finally, thanks to you guys for listening.